Hey there, I'm Sarita, and you're about to experience the modern approach to well-being where you get to establish the best and most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. I'm on a mission to help you declutter energy and reclaim your power so you can be a magnet to what you desire. If you're looking for the optimal blend of mindset and healing, you're in the right place. My goal in this podcast is to share tools, resources, and practices that will help you along your healing journey. I'm so excited to be here with you today, so welcome to Back to Here with Sarita. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Back to Here with Sarita. I'm so happy that you're here today joining me for another episode. And before we jump into the topic of the podcast episode today, the path to healing after a breakup, I just wanted to say how I absolutely love being here providing this avenue to communicate to you via this podcast. I feel like, and let me know if you agree with this, I feel like when I listen to a really good podcast, that I'm in the room with the speaker. Like it's this intimate conversation and I'm the only one there that they're speaking to. And so it just dawned on me, this is what I desire for this podcast, that you know that these words, the message, and the love behind each and every one of these episodes is meant just for you. So if you are new here, welcome. I'm Sarita. I'm your host. Besides being a podcaster, I'm also a coach. And this podcast is my special gift to you. And I absolutely love communicating via this podcast to the people that listen. But this is my special gift to you in the avenue of providing tools and resources and experiences around self-love, wellness, healing, manifestation, mindset. I mean, you name it. We talk about all of the things in this podcast. And I just wanted to throw this out there. If you haven't had a chance to listen to the last episode, it was actually my first episode of a series that I'm introducing into this podcast. So the name of my podcast is Back to Here with Sarita. And these special series that I have created within the podcast is called Self-Embrace Stories. And so on these special episodes, I have guests that share their self-love and healing stories, and I absolutely love them because not only do I get to interact with some amazing guests, I also get to utilize my platform to share experiences that you yourself may be going through at the moment. And I love connecting with my guests on the podcast because it's just really empowering for me to hear other people's stories, to hear other people share their experiences. And in thinking about it, it's so cool how we are able to see ourselves in someone else's experience. That's the power of sharing story. So when you get a chance, make sure to go back and listen to episode 5. That's the last episode that was dropped 2 weeks ago as Jessica shares her story. Okay, so for today, I wanted to take an opportunity to speak into part of my personal journey. And as like any podcaster that you listen to, you get to know your host through the bits and pieces of the stories that they share about themselves. And it's never my intention to speak really heavily about myself in this podcast. However, because I'm the host, you will get to experience the surfacing of bits of my life throughout the journey of this podcast. So, like I said, the primary focus of the podcast is about the healing journey experience. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode topic, the path to healing after a breakup. As some of you may know, if you've been following me personally or know me, I was in an 8-year relationship and I've utilized the last almost 2 years to find myself, which honestly has been so cool because it's been the inspiration behind my business message and my podcast, this journey of coming home to myself. And I decided, because this can be kind of a deep topic and a heavy topic to cover a lot of information, I figured that breaking up the topic into 2 parts, meaning today I'm going to share with you part 1, and then in 2 weeks the episode will drop with the information on part 2. So part 1 will be the part of my journey from pre-breakup to during breakup and what my self-love looked like. And then part 2 will of course be the things that I did after the breakup. So let's jump in. What I find the most intriguing thing about ending something or breaking up with someone or something, that there are 2 paths that you can take. One path is doing this inner work, that deep inner self-love work to break patterns of behaviors and to find that true, authentic essence of yourself. And the other path that you can take is to just keep going from person to person, repeating the same damn pattern over again, which actually ends up manifesting the same effing relationship over and over again. Have you had that happen? Have you been in a relationship and been like, this seems very familiar? Possibly because things have not shifted internally. And honestly, this is what I consider going from the state of victimhood to ownership. So somebody that is a victim is constantly repeating the pattern over and over again and not doing the work, whereas taking ownership is the person who is doing the inner work to heal themselves so they're not creating the same pattern over and over again. And so that's what my story is all about, really, the transition from victimhood to taking ownership for my actions. So for me, just to give a little background to you, I was in a committed partnership for about 8 years, and unfortunately it was one of those situations where I ignored my inner knowing for a really long time. I knew that I was unaligned in my relationship, but I ended up staying, and that happens to a lot of us. And if that's where you are, just take a moment to take a deep breath, and it's okay. So my relationship, never a toxic one. I don't want to talk bad about my partner because he was a very kind person who was trying his best with the information that he knew at the time. Yet, often I felt like I was a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. And what I know now about subconscious healing and mindset and self-love, I knew so little about in my relationship until the very, very end. Basically, I spent a lot of time giving to everybody and everything around me until the point of complete shutdown. And looking back at my relationships retrospectively, I realized that was my pattern. My pattern was the overgiver to shutdown, which honestly creates this sense of animosity and bitterness towards the person you're in a relationship with and the situation. But it's so crazy because, as I see it, again, victim, before I was thinking victim, is that I created that path for myself. I was that person because I never took the time to unpack what that looked like. So funny how that happens, right? We manifest the thing that we subconsciously believe over and over again. So now that you have a little background, I wanted to share with you 3 main ideas that were really helpful to me in supporting me during my breakup, and I hope are supportive to you or maybe someone else who's going through this similar situation. So I wish I could tell you that there was this really profound moment that I had, that I was an aha light bulb, that I just knew that I needed to break up, but in reality there wasn't. And like I mentioned to you just a few moments ago, that I had this knowing for a long time in my body, which I completely decided to ignore because I didn't know the value of turning inward. So everything that I'm all about now is things I just didn't know about at the time. But what I can say is that through the act of questioning and unpacking the layers, it ended up being as clear as day to me that the relationship didn't light me up anymore. I didn't know what that meant, but it was because I decided to unpack the layers a little bit to get more clarity on what that meant. And that was that it didn't light me up anymore. Which leads me to my first point, which is realizing and admitting to yourself out loud, whatever that looks like to you. Luckily for me at the time, I was in a community coaching container that allowed me to share with my coach at the time and my accountability partner what I had realized. Just that moment of clarity of this relationship doesn't light me up anymore. What that meant, I didn't know. What the next step was, I didn't know. But I was not able to get to that conclusion or even get to that moment because I wasn't allowing myself to go deeper. But it was because of the deeper work within that container, within that coaching container, that allowed me to see the layer beyond that surface, the surface of everything's okay, everything's fine, I'm all right, like all good. It helped me to vocalize that my relationship didn't light me up. And it wasn't just like to friends, but to people that were there to support me in my own internal transformation. So my suggestion to you is if you feel like you have a little bit of knowing, like a question, a possibility of being like unaligned, start peeling back the layers of what that looks like. Most importantly, get support in that, having that dialogue beyond just journaling, having a support group, a therapist, whatever that looks like to you, to help you answer the questions. What's underneath? What's coming up? Where do you feel it in your body? We tend to ignore the signs our body gives us, and all we have to do is listen to it so much more. That is exactly what I did, was go ahead and listen inward. Once we tune into the areas, we get more aware of what our next step can be. So this leads me to my next point, using the power of our words and intention. So first of all, I acknowledge that it didn't light me up. And so my next process was that I decided that I wanted to utilize the power of words and intention. So after I decided that I needed to break up my unaligned relationship, I was absolutely terrified of what that looked like. And partly because movies, shows, friends, they show us this like nasty breakup. Like we are projected with all these people that have these nasty like relationship breakups, and like the exes, it has to be messy and all that. And so instead of focusing on the fear, I decided to focus on something else. One of the things that I decided right off the bat was I really wanted to have a harmonious breakup. And that sounds like totally an oxymoron, but after being a student of the subconscious and manifesting for about 1 year, I understood the power of our words and intentions and what are behind the words. And what I desired for the most was to keep the pain at a minimum. And honestly, even though I was not able to do that, I knew that I couldn't control what that other person was feeling. I couldn't control the situation. What I knew I could control was the energy behind what I was giving to the situation. And so I understand like energetics, and I was very new at understanding energetics, but I understood that I could manifest something depending on my personal belief. So from off the bat, my mantra was at the beginning, I knew that I wanted to have a harmonious untanglement. What that may mean to you is different than what it may mean to me. And so what I did was got incredibly clear, extremely clear on what that felt like for me and what I wanted to experience. And for me at the time, it was little to no drama, clear communication, understanding, smooth transition, and a lot of self-love. Believe it or not, it was so insanely crazy how that breakup was exactly the way that I desired it to be and how smoothly it all went. In fact, it was really crazy how some people were so perplexed at how harmonious everything went. And that is not to say by any means that didn't go with like emotions or tears, because there was so much of that. In fact, there was a lot of that, a lot on my part. So it's really about how we perceive things. We can either look at it one of two ways. We can still experience turbulence in the wake of calm, or we can experience calm in the wake of the storm. So it's really about how you perceive things. That is the power of our words, intentions, and desired manifestations. So for my last point, I wanted to share something that I personally believe was probably the most challenging aspect of breaking up and moving on. And along with all the plethora of emotions that can occur during the process of a breakup, which can be really confusing in itself, there's also a lot of shame and guilt that can come up. And I just wanted to sidebar for a quick second about the most intriguing thing that I find about shame and guilt. Shame and guilt are not natural human emotions. They're not like bliss or joy or anger or frustration. Guilt and shame are really uniquely created like a societal conditioning, meaning we feel guilt and shame in reaction to the projection of judgment from others. Meaning, we cannot feel guilt or shame without somebody else in the equation. So when you feel guilt and shame, it's because you feel judgment for a decision on your end. And that usually stems from the belief of, I am doing something wrong. Really powerful, right? Again, guilt and shame are not normal human emotions. They are a societal projection. So my point is to have so much grace for yourself during a process like this, because with societal projections, it's only natural for us to bring up these emotions of guilt and shame. So one of my biggest takeaways from the process of my breakup was treating myself with compassion. In those moments when I was feeling like I just wanted to throw myself on the floor, be frustrated, again, I had no idea what the next chapter was. I had no idea what I was going to do next. All I knew so well within my body was that I didn't want to be in the dynamic anymore. What that looked like outside of that, I didn't know. And so what came up was the guilt and the frustration that I didn't know the answer. So treating myself with compassion was key to my self-love. Treating ourselves with compassion is the key to opening up the doors of loving ourselves more. And it's through the level of understanding, it's through that compassion, it's through the understanding that we are doing the best that we can with the information that we have at that time, navigating the emotions and working through a very tumultuous time. If you are experiencing any of these things, to just take a moment to acknowledge yourself and be grateful that you are here with yourself and that you can trust yourself in these moments. So I hope these points were insightful for you in regards to if you're experiencing breakup or if you know somebody who's experiencing breakup. Like anything, it's an opportunity. And I truly believe that the quality of our life is determined by the questions that we ask. So in a quick review, I just want to go over what I just shared with you. I mentioned how through the process of admitting to myself, unpacking the layers, and intentionally manifesting a harmonious breakup, having compassion for myself through the whole process, provided me the stepping stones for my next chapter. I did not know at that time what that meant. I didn't know in those moments what was going to happen next. But again, allowing myself to unpack the layers, intentionally manifest a harmonious breakup, and having compassion for myself through that whole process allowed me clarity and what to do next. The next episode 2, basically, or part 2, I should say, of my breakup story, I will share with you exactly the process that I took to recover from the breakup, or I should say after the breakup. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Well, love, I really hope this has been helpful for you. Can you do me a big favor? Can you share this with somebody who may be going through a challenging time in this department and might need some direction? Or if you resonate with this podcast episode and have more questions, maybe going through like the exact same experience, please reach out. I am so available for you to chat more on how I can be in service to you in regards to finding clarity and coming home to yourself. Because remember, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with you. Feel free to either send me a DM at Sarita Wellness on IG, TikTok, and even Facebook, or you can go ahead and email me at info@saritawellness.com. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember, keep being the amazing you that you are. See you next time. Hey love, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you adored what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to leave a review on the platform you are listening to this episode on. By doing this, you are helping my mission to impact other women with their healing journeys. If you aren't already following me on social media, make sure to connect with me at Sarita Wellness to get your weekly dose of inspiration. I can't wait to be with you in the next episode, but in the meantime, keep being the amazing you that you are.